Today's a big day for this channel because after almost 300 episodes, I am finally doing a Ray Harryhausen movie. Yeah, there was that top 10 video I did years ago, but now I'm gonna do a whole episode dedicated to one movie. And not only is this the first movie where Ray did the effects solo, but it's also one of the direct inspirations for Godzilla. So here's hoping a certain movie company isn't inspired to block this video. The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms is a 1953 monster movie from director Eugene Laurie, who also directed Gorgo, which weirdly enough is another giant monster movie that often gets compared to Godzilla. In this movie's case, though, it was released more than a year before the first Godzilla movie, and Godzilla producer Tomoyuki Tanaka said it was a direct inspiration for Godzilla. Loosely based on a short story by author Ray Bradbury, it features stop-motion animation by Ray Harryhausen and was the first movie where Ray was completely in charge of the effects. The movie's also been credited with kickstarting the whole atomic monster craze of the 1950s. So if it wasn't for this movie, we might not have Godzilla, Ray Harryhausen, 50s monster movies. Shit, I basically owe my whole channel to this movie. In addition to the Godzilla comparisons, the movie may not have King Kong in it, but it does have King Donovan, and also somebody named Buttolph, which sounds like a word Beavis and Butthead would say. Anyway, the movie begins like any 50s monster movie should, with some opening narration.
This is Operation Experiment, a secret base far north of the Arctic Circle.
Operation Experiment, huh? What, was Operation Science already taken? And listen guys, you can experiment all you want, but cross-country plane skiing is never gonna be a sport in the Olympics. Also, just a tip, if you find a spaceship buried in the ice, do yourself a favor and leave it the hell alone. Just what is Operation Experiment anyway? Oh, okay, they're testing the effects of nuclear stock footage. Well, that makes sense. And nice job, fellas, you melted the polar ice caps. Your next experiment better be a decent electric car, or maybe a different mode of transportation.
Colonel Evans, there's something strange on the radar screen.
Right here, sir. A foreign object.
Huh, kinda looks like a flying battleship, but nah, that's just stupid. Anyway, our main character is Professor Tom Nesbitt, an all-American hero played by Swiss actor Paul Hubschmid.
What the cumulative effects of all these atomic explosions and tests will be, only time can tell.
I'll tell you what the effect is gonna be, a shitload of monster movies, that's what. I know I joked about The Thing earlier, but this was actually shot on some of the same Arctic base sets as the original 1951 version of The Thing, and Kenneth Tobey is in both movies. Damn, that guy just cannot stop running into monsters at the North Pole. You should really ask for a transfer. And that isn't the only bad thing about working up here. Stupid Arctic mailboxes. Why the hell are they so far away? I'm cold. Now, in a lot of 50s monster flicks, they usually hide the monster at first. A lot of times you don't get a good look at it until over the halfway point. In this movie... yeah, here they're not fucking around. They show you the whole monster in the first 10 minutes. Hey, when you got Ray Harryhausen doing your effects, no sense beating around the bush. Might as well show that sucker off. Ah, come on, he's probably fine. Okay, maybe not now. Tom is the only survivor who actually saw the monster. Quick, better put him on the first stock footage back to America. Unfortunately, no one believes his story about seeing a giant monster, but it is less ridiculous than his accent.
But George Ritchie wasn't dead when I got to him. He tried to warn me. Two people don't share the same hallucination.
I did not make up the monster. It's not true. It's all bullshit. I did not make up the monster. I did not. Look, relax, Tom. It's the 50s. They'll prescribe you some Thorazine and send you on your way. Not only were the filmmakers smart enough to hire Ray Harryhausen, but they also remembered to have the monster scenes at regular intervals to stop the audience from getting bored. Let's see, a ship in a monster movie? Well, can't see anything bad happening here.
Oh shit.
I mentioned that this movie as a whole was a big influence on Godzilla, but something tells me the executives at Toho were really paying attention during this part. Just call it a hunch. Even though the monsters struck again, people still don't believe Tom's story, but maybe the Sunday funnies will cheer him up. Oh, Marmaduke, you always put a smile on my face. However, Tom ends up reading something so shocking it causes the newspaper to change between edits. There's reports of a sea monster, but I think the most unbelievable thing about this story is that somebody apparently survived this. Because nobody believes him, Tom goes to a paleontologist called Professor Elson to see if he can convince him the monster exists.
Do you realize that you're asking me to believe you saw a creature that would be over 100 million years old?
Alright, this is just a small detail, but they actually got the time when dinosaurs existed right. A lot of times in these movies, they say they lived 1 million years ago and palled around with cavemen. Tom's theory is that the atomic bomb testing thawed out a dinosaur trapped in the ice and brought it back to life. Once again, can't think of any similarities to other monster movies here.
Then, when we released the bomb, the heat generated melted the ice in which this beast was imprisoned and freed it.
Bringing it back to life after 100 million years.
That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Almost as ridiculous as making dozens of movies out of that idea. Even if Professor Elson's skeptical, Tom's potential love interest is here too. She really digs a guy who's into dinosaurs. Speaking of which, looks like there's been another attack.
From Marquette, Canada today comes word of a second ship destroyed by an enormous beast, according to her captain, George LeMay. He really ought to stop smoking that stuff and try Virginia Golds, because...
Yeah, the only thing more 50s than radioactive monsters? Following it up with a cigarette ad. Well, I guess dinosaurs and cigarettes do go together. Even Fred and Barney knew that. Tom tries to identify the dinosaur he saw by looking at pictures from books I had as a kid. Now this is where we get to some of the romance part of the movie, and it is really... there.
Between us, we span the ages. You deal with the past, I with the future.
And how uncomplicated the past was.
And how bright the future can be.
Yeah, that's great. Can we get back to the monster stuff, please? No, these pictures are all wrong. None of the dinosaurs have feathers. Also, what dinosaur is this supposed to be? Did you get that drawing off a refrigerator? Eventually, Tom's able to identify the correct dinosaur when he's given some of the film's concept art. To corroborate his story, Tom goes to Canada to see if the fishermen who survived the boat sinking earlier saw the same monster, and apparently in the 50s, Canada was the Old West. Well, joke's on them, we're already up to the 90s now. I gotta admit, this part does feel like they're stalling for time a bit, and the movie's only 80 minutes long. Alright, well, stop motion animation is time consuming, so I guess there was only so much monster stuff they could put in. Alright, time to prove to Professor Elson that the monster's real.
So you saw the monster too,
Oh yeah, like we were out fishing for some carp when all of a sudden fucking Buddy comes up out of the ocean, starts tuning up our boat something fierce like he's trying to get 5 for fighting or something. I had to swim back to shore and ended up getting all my darts wet and ended up missing the Leafs game. The dinosaur they identify is called a Radosaurus. Get it? Radosaurus. And even though it's not a real species of dinosaur, this is actually the 3rd time one has appeared in a movie I've done on this channel.
That hallucination of mine, the one that everybody was having such a good laugh about. Well, I've got proof the monster exists.
Yeah, I don't know if the testimony of a drunken sailor counts as proof, Tom. I mean, he also said he saw a mermaid once, but it was just Barb from the bingo hall going for a swim. And what the hell? When did this turn into the lighthouse?
I heard a new song at the tavern the other day. Something about gin and wild women.
I wish these guys would stare at the lantern light and get it over with. Now, I mentioned earlier that the movie is based off a short story by Ray Bradbury. Kinda. In the story, a sea monster hears a lighthouse foghorn and goes ashore thinking it's found another one of its own kind, and when it sees the lighthouse, it destroys it, and that's it. That's pretty much the whole story. Well, that may not have a lot to do with this movie, but it does have a scene where the beast destroys a lighthouse. And that is the only part of the movie that has anything to do with the short story, so hopefully Ray Bradbury enjoyed the check. Even though there's been another attack, the military still doesn't believe there's a monster, but they do believe in the rich, smooth taste of Virginia Gold cigarettes. Professor Elson informs the military that with each sighting, the monster seems to be making its way down the East Coast, which means it can only be headed for Toms River, New Jersey.
just possible that he might be making for here.
Oh. Okay, guess it's headed for New York. This might seem like a bit of a leap, but it makes a hell of a lot more sense than the spiral pattern in the giant claw. Elson thinks the monster is headed for the Hudson River area where some fossils of its species were found, and he wants to try and capture it by heading down himself in a tiny diving bell. I see absolutely no problem with this plan.
I don't like the idea of you going down there with just one man.
But that's capacity. Besides, if there's any danger, my crewman, Mr. Wilson, will know what to do.
Yeah, he'll cut you loose and get the hell out of there, that's what.
Why would you persist in talking about danger, my boy? The Rhedosaurus and I are old friends.
Yeah? Well, this guy thought that he and Godzilla were old friends. How'd that go for him? See, this is why you can't trust giant radioactive dinosaurs. They always betray you. Alright, admittedly the model work during this part isn't quite as impressive as Harryhausen's animation, but the shimmer effect to make it seem like it's underwater is a nice touch. Well, no sign of the monster, nothing but stock footage down here. Before the movie's able to turn into a SeaWorld snuff film though, the Rhedosaurus comes along and eats it.
Unbelievable. He's tremendous.
Here's another similarity between this movie and Godzilla. They're both supposed land monsters that spend a lot of time in the ocean. And you might want to get the hell out of there, Professor.
But the most astonishing thing about it is that...
What's astonishing is how much of a death wish you have.
Dr. Elson. Hello? The line is dead.
Yeah, well, that's not the only thing that's dead. Damn, and the professor was just 2 days from asking the crew to pull him back up. Hey, babe, sorry about the professor. I know he meant a lot to you. Anyway, are we still on for Saturday night? Okay, there's about 20 minutes left, so what do you say we stop stalling and get this giant monster rampage started? Yeah, that's one way to make an entrance. Looks like these dock workers are going to be taking their lunch break a little early today. So after almost an hour of build-up, we're finally at the part of the movie where the monster attacks New York. Before this, the most notable giant movie monster was King Kong, and we got to see him rampage through New York a little bit. But you gotta remember, Kong was only about the size of a T-Rex, and gets killed by biplanes with machine guns at the end. This was one of the first movies to show a truly kaiju-sized monster attacking a city, and if you still doubt the influence on Godzilla, check this out. Also, even though this was Harryhausen's first solo effort doing the stop-motion animation, his style is still evident here. I like the little touches, like the monster playing with a car for a little bit after crushing it. And while it may seem quaint by today's standards, if anyone thinks this looks bad, how about we compare it to some other 50s monsters?
You violate the law of plan. Fact, you have captured the girl and not destroyed her.
Yeah, you know what? Harryhausen was in a class of his own. My favorite part, though, has to be when the Beast confronts the world's stupidest cop. Wait for it. To any Vor fans watching, and apparently there's a few of you, you're welcome. It's okay though, he's fine. See, look, he actually shows up later in the movie.
Ordinary bullets have no effect, and a method of destroying the awesome creature has not yet been formulated.
Man, too bad you don't have an oxygen destroyer. The National Guard gets called in, but despite all the chaos, Judy Garland is still gonna perform in Times Square, damn it. The army tries to find the monster, but apparently it's hiding somewhere. Not really sure where something this big would hide. Well, maybe he's having a drink at this bar or something. Oh, wait a minute, there he is. Okay, remember fellas, aim for the monster.
His skull. It's at least 8 inches thick.
Oh, what, are you calling him stupid? blood? Now he's really gonna be pissed. They also set up high tension wires, so if the Godzilla comparisons weren't obvious already, this should really drive it home. I don't think Godzilla would end up getting wounded by a bazooka though. Well, great, you blew the power, fellas. Now how is Judy Garland supposed to perform? The soldiers follow a trail of the monster's blood. At least I hope that's blood. And where the hell does it keep disappearing to? Uh-oh, looks like something's wrong with the troops.
Look, Colonel, something's funny. Most of the detail there. Well, they're out.
Don't ask, don't tell, soldier. Alright. Actually, there's a different explanation for what's going on here.
The monster's a giant germ carrier of a horrible virulent disease. Contact with the animal's blood can be fatal.
So here's another innovative thing about this movie. Because it's not Japanese and they couldn't really give the monster death rays or atomic breath or stuff like that, this disease plot is a good way to make the monster more of a threat, and it explains why the military doesn't just blow it up. Well, if they can't blow the monster up, they better think of something quick. There's only 10 minutes left.
There's only one way to beat him. Radioactive isotope. Shoot it into him and destroy all that diseased tissue.
Okay. Sure, that sounds good, I guess. They better hurry up and kill the monster. It's about to destroy Coney Island. Then where are the warriors supposed to hang out? Some people might already know this, but the movie has a cameo from Lee Van Cleef as a sniper tasked with shooting the radioactive isotope into the monster's wound. And I gotta say, this movie is a lot better than It Conquered the World.
Ever use a grenade rifle? Pick my teeth with it.
Good.
Wow, even when he's just a cameo, Lee Van Cleef still gets the best line in the movie. They better shoot this thing fast. It really hates wooden roller coasters. However, there's a bit of a problem.
I can't hit him from here, mister.
Okay, guess New York's fucked then. Just kidding. Instead, they use the roller coaster to get a better shot at him. This kinda looks like if the KKK went to Six Flags. Once again, it's the little details that count here, like actually giving the monster a bleeding wound and a suitably dramatic death. But there's a bit of a snag. Alright, who put barrels of kerosene next to the wood roller coaster? That's just stupid. It's okay, though. The flames just make the monster's death look cooler. Alright, everybody. From now on, we're only testing nuclear weapons near Japan. Unusually for a monster movie, The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms was a surprise hit, becoming one of Warner Brothers' highest-grossing movies of 1953. Beyond just its box office, though, the movie had a huge impact on sci-fi movies, influencing not just Godzilla, but 50s monster flicks in general. And of course, it was the movie that helped launch Ray Harryhausen's career and make him the legend he is today. The star of the show is, of course, Harryhausen's animation of the monster. Even if it's not on par with his best stuff, it's still one of the best giant monsters of the 1950s. The movie surrounding the monster is not as good, but it's fine for a movie like this. Nobody watches a 50s monster flick for the romance subplot anyway. Even though it's definitely one of the most influential, I wouldn't quite call this the best 50s monster flick. Later movies, like Them, took the formula laid down in this movie and helped perfect it, but it's still way above average and worth a look if you're interested in giant monster movie history. And of course, without this movie, we probably wouldn't have Godzilla, so I definitely owe a debt to it. Speaking of which, I just realized my next video is going to be my 300th episode, so I better do something big for it. After all, you know what they say, size does matter.